Nau mai hoki mai tātou mā. Welcome to another episode of Kupu Tupu. And today's kupu is Tikanga. So, Tikanga. Looking to, spell that word. T-I. K-A. N-A.
Tikanga.
Kia ora. That's T-I-K-A-N-G-A. Tikanga. So let's dive into this kupu.
Tikanga, sure.
Ooh, it's a loaded kupu.
Yeah.
Can be painful as well.
Yeah, well, it can. Yeah, you're right. So tikanga, I guess from my perspective, my understanding of tikanga has its links to do with Māori protocols, customary protocols, but also the law in which we conduct ourselves.
Not the legal law.
Well, yeah, there has been some actual development in linking it to legal law, being that in the process of resettlement and that has come to its prominence, absolutely. But also in this context, I sort of want to look at it from when we look into the word itself, tika, ngā, tika being the correct or right way, and ngā, the things that we do, so plural. So looking at the right and correct way of doing things. Also, I tend to look at it from the point of an ethical approach and a sort of mindfulness of our own, and an awareness of our own place here on this whenua, on this land, and to, I guess, with regards to our tupuna, it was how we engaged with each other in society, and also another thing is how we retain a lot of mātauranga Māori that informs us of that. I mean, an example of tikanga, I guess with on the marae, a friend of mine asked me, why do you fellas take off your shoes before you go in the whare nui? And very simple question. Yeah, absolutely. But the way I explained it to him, and the way it's been explained to me, being brought up on the marae, is that our tupuna had a really interesting way in navigating and transitioning from one space to another. So on the marae, the realm of tūmatauenga is in the marae ātea, which is just out the front of the whare nui. And tūmatauenga is known as the god of war, but also the god of man. And so within the whare nui is the realm of rongo, or peace. So the idea is that when you take off your shoes, you aren't carrying the soot, the paru, or the mara of tūmatauenga into the realm of peace. Yeah. So that's hence why we take off our shoes. There's different kawa for different iwi and hapu, but that's the way it was explained to me.
Sure.
So there's different ways in which we are mindful of our presence.
Like for example, when I imagine with tikanga, there's, with every example, there must always be a deeper understanding, like the one you've just explained. My first probably interaction with tikanga was in primary school, and it wasn't presented as tikanga, but it was presented as, in Māori culture, it's disrespectful to sit on a table.
Aye.
You know, I was told that in primary school.
Aye.
Wasn't explained why. Didn't have any background. Probably a Pākehā person telling me that, and I can't tell you the context, but that is tikanga, isn't it? You know?
Tika. Absolutely.
And Lynn, actually, you were mentioning before you've had a similar experience of that.
Yeah, fill us in.
Yeah, well, that was a slightly hurtful experience. Physically, spent a bit of time in the Hokianga. We have a gallery up there, and one occasion I went up there with my hat on when I leave the city, and went to the gallery, took my hat off and put it on the table. And our gallery manager, Dawn Harris, local artist, immediately whacked me with the hat. Not too hard. Now, what was that about? And explain, well, head is tapu, and table noa, with food, and the two don't meet. And as a Pākehā, my first reaction was, well, what does it really matter, But I lived and worked in Asia for a number of years, and one of the things we did in Singapore was I went through what was called a cultural orientation, and learning that what each of us do culturally is different, not right or wrong, but different, and it arises from a number of reasons, and the key thing is respect. And so coming back once again, if I want to connect with someone who has a different value or a different protocol, then a key thing is to connect means respect. The two need to go together, and understanding. So no longer does my hat go on the table.
Ka pai. I mean, I sort of want to, because as I see it, tikanga isn't it's not a static sort of thing, in that tikanga in a more contemporary sort of context is sort of adapted,
right?
And in doing so has made it very, I guess, easier to utilise within our, the comings and going of our daily lives. So, I mean, what are the sorts of encounters that you've had with tikanga, Rachel?
Oh, I was just thinking about one. That's not, I turned it down.
Look, there's another connection going on here. Tikanga.
Here we go.
Throw it out the door.
That's a modern. That's a modern. Tikanga.
Oh, I turned it down too.
So that tikanga is whenever you're in a formal meeting somewhere, you make sure that, or the movies, you make sure your cell phone is turned off. I mean, that is a new tikanga. It's related to the digital age we live in. This is the second time this has happened to Rachel today.
Oh my goodness, I turned it down too, so we wouldn't hear it, but what happened? What did it stop ringing? Oh, it's weird, sorry.
So tikanga also needs tolerance, understanding, but also learning.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, so the story, we had a girlfriend invited me to help her out. She had all these foreigners from a Deer tribe, who are the First Nations Deer tribe, but they were all European, mix of European races of people that came over, and we hosted them on a marae, and it was funny because at the beginning it was okay, they were quite alright with everything. We were, when you come into the marae, you're not allowed to be greeted on unless somebody from the marae is actually there to greet you on. So we got through that stage, and when you go inside you take your shoes off, okay, and then you can't. There was a lot of tikanga and that we, and every day there was something. Sorry, you can't do. Why aren't we allowed to do all these things? I don't know, but that's just what we were taught. So you've just got to do it. We couldn't really explain all these things that the reasons for why we have to do these, but they're just put there in place, and it's a shame that we don't know all of the deeper meaning behind it, like what you've explained, because that's really, because now I know why. But it made me look at our people all look at us in a way like, oh gosh, we do have a lot of stop signs, don't we? Stop, stop, no, you're not allowed to touch this, not allowed to do that, no, you know. So it kind of made me think, very limiting, but obviously there's reasons for it.
Yeah.
So, and for their experience, it was quite, you know, they had to stop and they couldn't just keep going and flowing. They had all these barriers in the way of them being able to do that, but there was all these reasons behind it. So
every culture is the same. Every culture has a whole lot of stop signs, you know, a whole lot of do's and don'ts. So we were out for dinner the other night, and I was having my hands on the table like this, and someone said, "Hey, you're not supposed to put your hands on the table." Oh, why? Well, that's what we're told. Well, I was never told that. You know, so we have all these stop signs.
Right. But if there's an explanation behind that, it's even more better. Oh, okay, then I understand that, and I won't do it. I have a bit more understanding of it, and and it's much more meaningful that way.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, it is meaningful. I guess a really interesting thing about that is, it has a lot to do with the South and what you consider to be, to be the right way of doing things. I guess they are stop signs in a way, because it makes you stop and think about what you're doing, because you know, like I said, in the coming and going of our daily lives, you know, we just sort of go through life without taking any of this into consideration. The only sort of stop signs you see is the traffic one. So you know, and you abide by that, of course, because it's law.
There's another way of looking at it, is it's not about stop signs or right way, it's just the way of doing things. So in life we need, just like a river needs a course to get to its destination. You know, a tikanga could be a course to get to the destination. So it's not about right or wrong, it's just the course that we establish that works well.
Absolutely.
So that's another aspect to it, maybe.
And I guess we become a lot more informed about, you know, our presence here, you know, and everything that we do is sort of, it's sort of, you have to approach it with a sort of mindfulness, you know, and that's the way it makes sense to me.
Which I think is super relevant today. You're talking about, you know, tikanga being, you know, not being stagnant, not being static, and you know, how do these values apply in the modern world? And I feel like one thing that, you know, we can really easily lack these days is a bit of mindfulness in our day-to-day life, you know. We're so much busier than we used to be, we're communicating so much more, we've got so much more stimulation everywhere, that it can be easy just to put your head down, go through, and before you know it's 10 o'clock at night and you're going to bed, and you've never actually paused and thought about, okay, well, how is this thing I'm about to do, how can I do this in a way that is going to be positive and not affect others around me in a negative way, you know, and do it with respect. And a lot of things I see, you know, a lot of examples of tikanga I see help prevent that, you know. They're there so that we can do things in a way that means we can conduct ourselves with respect.
Absolutely. Respect's a big word. I think too, I guess I want to see where tikanga is being implemented now. Like we, you know, yes, it's more commonly seen on the marae, and it's something that we're quite familiar with. But I guess I'm looking to the sort of broader implementation of tikanga.
Well, we were talking about when we talked about whenua, we talked about rahui, didn't we?
Tika,
and we talked about the waitakaris. And, you know, obviously the rahui that's in place there, and there again, that, you know, a rahui being, you know, when something becomes tapu would be the right word to use, and through that it's so that natural resources can replenish, or the Māori of somewhere can replenish. You know, I think again that's super relevant now, you know, when we're thinking about, you know, how we can live sustainably on this earth, and I mean, the example of Orahui we were talking about before, which I found really interesting, was you were talking about during the All Blacks Springbok tour.
Yeah,
A little bit further back, but we can still consider it modern.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned there was a kaumātua who placed Orahui on All Blacks travelling to South Africa.
Aye, absolutely, yes. Very creative.
And that to me, I think is really interesting, sort of, especially in 1980s New Zealand, to anything against rugby.
True. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
that's exactly. A bit cool. So, but I mean, as far as other, I don't know if anybody else has any other ideas of examples of tikanga in day-to-day life that we still see. I mean, one I can think of actually. I mean, I don't know if it's direct tikanga. I don't want to, take too many liberties here, but one thing I hear a lot is making sure reo a kupu are pronounced correctly.
Yes.
Place names and things like that.
Would
Would that be somewhat considered?
For me personally, I would, absolutely. I'd feel comfortable with that approach to tikanga. I think, after all, tika, being the right way of doing things, or the right way of conducting oneself, and part and parcel of that is, in Te Reo Māori, it's an important part of the significance of the language.
It was like the other weekend I went up north with a friend, and he's Pākehā, and he was trying to pronounce all these Māori words in this Pākehā way, and I straight away, doesn't matter who you are, I'm correcting you. And he's like, and he'll try, and I kind of like brings me back to just like, it's a Māori word. So speak it like it's a Māori word, not if you need to learn how to speak that word properly, then you need to learn how to at least pronounce all your vowels and everything like that, so that you can kōrero Māori properly, and it's sounds much nicer, and you'll be surprised. Just you need to take that time out to respect the language and to understand it more, and that's all it takes. It's just to to do that. So that's mate. Anyone see that? Right? Oh gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it comes from a place of respect. A funny thing, actually, in the time of our tupuna, there were actually people delegated. They were like officers. They slap you on the back of the hand when you transgressed tikanga.
Right.
These people were delegated as. I wouldn't say they were tohunga, but they were those who enacted the right. They were just impassioned by making sure that things were done the right way, and they would also it's interesting because the kids got it the most, the children got it the most, and those who were delegated to make sure and ensure that the right way of doing things was being enacted were always around, the tikanga police of sort. Not tikanga police.
Can I just share a little story?
Absolutely.
So with this deer tribe that came over, they had their leader and kaumātua on their side, and so before they came over here, there was a Māori woman who was obviously the kaumātua who was hosting, but she passed away. So one of the younger girls, who's my friend, had to take over, and but because of this woman's connection to the elders or kaumātua ways, this younger one didn't have that same power. So when these people came over, the leader fell sick, and very sick, and this, mind you, I'm saying this because this is them way over on that side of the world coming here and not adhering to our kaupapa or our Tikanga Māori here. he got sick and we had to draw upon a kaumātua, and she lifted this tapu.
Okay.
But like that to me says that there's a lot to say about how this, like if our people went over there without being the things done, like the process being done properly, we would have got sick. Same thing. So that's what the kaumātua explained to us, was that because that fire had passed away and they hadn't done a proper ceremony for them to come here. That's what happened. So that's another an example of tikanga that stretches not just from on our land, but if we were to go there, there would have to be a process for us to go there and take spiritual work on another whenua or another land. So yeah, that just reminded me of that time. It was quite a very strong experience for me. I was just like, wow, this is very deep, and another way of respecting the spiritual realm.
Was there any
pretty deep?
Yeah. I'm just sort of Were there any sort of comparisons drawn there with regards to the tangata whenua of that place and Māori? Were there any like tikanga orientated, like with the sort of protocols? Was there anything shared that sort of?
Not really. Not that because I wasn't part of their teachings.
Oh, I see.
So I was on the outside looking after the little baba while they were having their teachings. But I already know all of this stuff. And when they went into a cave to do their little pipe ceremony, I was like, I'm sitting out there. I ain't sitting in here because I already know that I'm not supposed to be messing with stuff like this. And so I did. And I stayed outside, and then and that's when everything got really serious. And then my friend called upon one of the kaumātua because she was taking him to the doctors all the time, to the hospital, but they couldn't stop what was happening to him. So she called on the kaumātua from the marae, and she uplifted and said, this is the reason why this is happening. Next time, this is not supposed to happen this way. And so they managed to lift it, but it was explained to us that the process, and I knew because I was like, hey, there's no old person around here. Where's the kaumātua? Because kaumātuas aren't my age, unless they've been given that right. But I'm used to seeing an old fella there sitting there doing all the lifting and that. So that's just another example of tikanga.
Absolutely.
And the deeper side of it, but it's just amazing how it spreads like universally. It's not just here, but it reaches right out there.
And I think that aspect of culture, tikanga, for Westerners who don't understand and comprehend native peoples, culture, and a lot of tikanga arises from something that's very deep and does have spiritual aspects to us, which is
as much as people just turn a blind eye to it, it's actually there.
Something there.
Right.
But that kind of led me to another thing, which is a bit away from that, but is associated. Like for me, tikanga gives to me a sense of security. And a knowing. So the first time I went on to Marae, was anxious because what do I do? Where do I stand? How do I respond? What don't I do? I didn't want to get whacked again with my hat, And it doesn't matter whether it's in any cultural sense. There are protocols that have nothing to do with right or wrong, but the way that we do things, because it gives it a sense of we're all on this journey together, and we know how we start it, progress it, and end it. And that provides the skeleton for all of the content to take place within. And the two seem quite essential, yeah.
It helps to bring everybody together.
Yeah,
it does. It really does.
Yeah. So that when things are clear, you know, then we're not confused about what we're here trying to do with one another, are we? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because that confusion sort of, I mean, I'd hate to think that if I brought someone onto my marae that they felt really anxious and weren't informed about the protocols of that marae. And one thing that I've seen, and it does happen quite often, is that there's a sort of a bit of an impromptu hui between the manuhiri and tangata whenua, to sort of iron those things out.
We did that on the bus ride to the marae with all of these people.
Kapai.
We're like, just getting you all ready, and then so they knew that they had to wear, the woman had to wear like a lava to cover their legs, and even I was like, oh yeah, true. So I forgot about that. So I was being, reminded as well. And so by the time we got there, they had a fair idea what they were supposed to do and not supposed to do. So that was really cool.
And that once again leads back into a sort of mindfulness. You know, you bring someone into your home, and we don't have too much. I mean, if I'm talking about a more sort of your residence, your own whare, I know for our whānau, we tend to take off our shoes before we go inside. That's what we do. That's one of the just the very sort of subtle tikanga that we utilise within our own whare in a contemporary context. Another one is karakia. So incantations that bless the food that we eat, and once again it's being mindful that this is a privilege to be able to eat, when we see so much people go without. So that reminds us of that as well, through karakia. And I guess an interesting thing about another aspect of tikanga that we probably won't delve into now is tapu ingoa. And that's another sort of a huge that's a facet to tikanga that we might save for another time.
But just before we go, one of the things that really comes through to me, it just relates to what you said a moment ago, is the why. We can see tikanga, we observe it, and like one of the things we were taught when we were in Asia is whenever you see something that's different from what you do, immediately ask the question why, explore it and gain understanding that you might be able to integrate and respect. So thinking of New Zealand being so many peoples from around the world, and we see so many different things happening, and each people group has their own tikanga. One of the ways that we could actually build community, I would consider, is by when we see something that's different, rather than saying, that's them, I don't like that. I wonder why that is. There's a reason that is significant for them, historically, spiritually, relationally, that would bring us as people closer together in terms of respect and understanding tikanga.
Tēnā koe mō kōrero in. I guess on that, I guess we could wrap this up, and I'd just like to thank Morgan, Rachel and Lynn once again for being a part of this awesome kōrero. Until next time, e hoa ma, hei kona.